What is up, everybody? Welcome to the very first edition of Let the Record Show, which is going to be a new program here on the Severe MMA YouTube. Every so often, I'm going to go through a card, and I'm not going to talk about a breakdown of the fight. I'm not going to talk about a fighter's ability or anything. I'm going to look purely at their record, what gym they train out of, you know, who they've fought before, and all of that stuff. So I'm going to start here with Cage Warriors 110. It goes down this weekend in Cork, actually in Neptune Arena, where I did some of my college exams, so I know the place well. Cage Legacy have cards there over the last few years. It's the place where Joseph Duffy fought Conor McGregor, and lots of big Irish MMA fights happened down throughout the years. So I'm going to get into that card. I'm going to break down the records of some of the big fighters on the card and look at basically every fight on the card and see how we get to it. Right, so let's cut over here and look at the card. So I'm going to look just at the amateur card first, a quick run through that just to let people know who's on it. So we've Adam Cairn versus Jay Taylor, Kevin Finn versus Connor Saunders. We've Graham Sheehan versus Thomas Gignac. Graham Sheehan, you know, his brother fought Ian Gary there recently in Cage Warriors. It's fighting out a team right now. We've Mikey O'D versus Keith Dean, Michael Prendergast versus Maga Zurabov, and Patrick Lahan from down in Cork always brings a big crowd with him versus Shane Geraghty. So let's jump over here to our good friends at Tapology and look at the card. Obviously, the card is Cage Warriors 110, Saturday night, and it's going to be on UFC Fight Pass for everyone around the world on broadcast in the US, in the UK, and Ireland, Neptune Stadium down in Cork, as I mentioned. Right, so let's look at the official card here, and the main card, I suppose, the main event, Hakan Fost versus Reese, McKee. Co-main event is Ian Gary versus Matthias Figlak. Actually, I'm not sure, is it the co-main event? This hasn't been updated yet. The Cage Warriors card here, if we just look at it, actually has been updated, and it says Joe McColgan versus Robbie Scott. So I'll pull those two guys up in a second, but we'll head back here. Paul Lawrence versus Tomas Wachnik, whose name I probably killed there. Kieran Mulholland versus Nathan Fletcher. We've Decky McAleen on this card as well. I believe his opponent Jarvis Southwell is out of this card. If we go back to the Cage Warriors page, it says TBC there. So we look at Decky McAleen and we leave his opponent for a second. We have Ismar Baloge versus Cathal Manning. We have Manny Akpan versus Jack Maguire, another one of the Cork guys there. And we have Eric Nolan versus John Mitchell. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with the main event, then I'll go from the bottom up and we'll end with the Ian Gary fight. So let's look at Reese McKee first. And let's see his record and everything like that. So Reese McKee, 9-2-1. He is obviously fighting out of Next Generation in Northern Ireland, currently on a 2-fight win streak. His last win was 155.8 pounds, but moving up to 170 today. So let's look at his record there quickly. So his last fight fought Perry Goodwin, 8-5, pretty good record. Jefferson George before that. Terry Brazier, as we know, a guy who came into the fight as 9-1 and as a champion himself. He's fought Tim Barnett then. Before that, having lost to Tim Barnett in his first UFC loss, drew Richie Smullen, who we saw on the Ultimate Fighter, and I believe they fought an amateur before. We'll get to that as well. Couple of cancelled bouts there, and he started off his career with 5 wins in a row. Jai Herbert, who we know now, Cage Warriors champion, Tommy McCafferty, Sean Luther, Alex Mazaku, and John Redmond, who we know obviously a long-time Irish MMA stalwart, I suppose you call it. On his amateur career, he went 4-3, I believe it is. Went into that fight as 3-3. Owen Drumgoole, who we know has been around for a long time. Valdrim Lubishtani, a couple of losses then. Michael O'Connor, Ben Sheehan, and you see Richie Smullen down there as well. So overall, we'll look at his win-loss summary. Obviously 9-2-1, and his finishes, his wins, he's had 6 via KO, TKO, 3 by submission, never gone to a decision in a win. And in his losses, he's had 1 KO loss and 1 decision loss. So that's Reese McKee. So let's look at his opponent, Hakan Fost, and obviously we're going through these pretty comprehensively here as it's the main event. So Hakan Fost, Death is his nickname, 9-7 record. He is currently on a 2-loss streak. His last win was at 186, so he's coming down to 170 for this fight, fighting out of Team Hellboy. His last couple of fights, Jason Radcliffe and Aaron Khalid, obviously two pretty experienced guys. Jason Radcliffe entered the fight 14-7, and Aaron Khalid, as you can see there, 8-4-1. I fought Jack Mason and beat Jack Mason in his fight before that via round one. Knees and punches. So that's a very big win for him there. Lost to Craig White, who we saw in the UFC, lost to Martin Harris, who was due to fight Ian Gary there recently before that. And all of the guys he's basically fought there in his career have been really, really experienced, even if you get down to these ones. Sebastian Kajerstam, I believe he fought Ben Askren, if I'm not mistaken, but he's an experienced guy as well. Ian Pascu, who we know, and Charlie Leary as well, who fought in Ireland before. So every guy he's fought has had a pretty good record there. So, you know, as we said, that record of 9-7 might be the best record in the world, but the records of the guys he's fought have always been good. His wins have come via KO, 4 KOs, 3 by submission, and 2 by decision, and his losses 6 finishes and 1 by decision. So let's go back to the full card again, and we'll go from the bottom up this time. So John Mitchell making his debut here. He's 11-3 amateur record, as we can see there. He fights out of BJJ Cork, so a hometown guy here. His last weigh-in 168.7 pounds. This bout coming up is going to be at, let me just look at it here, 155 pounds. So yeah, that's it there. His amateur records, we see lots of fights there. Ty Glennan, a guy we know around. Kenny as well, we've seen on fights. I believe he's a CMAC guy, if I'm not mistaken. Ivan Blanche as well, we've seen around an awful lot. And other guys there on that record. So let's go to his opponent right now, Eric Nolan. So Eric Nolan currently 1-1 in his pro career. He fights out of Team Rhino, obviously, in Dublin. He's on a 1-fight loss, so he's 2 opponents. His first fight was Marcin Zimbella, who we know has been fighting around for a long time, at Cage Wars 81 and Cage Wars 86. He lost to Mehdi Saeed. In his amateur career, he beat Lee Hammond. That's a very, very good win. Lee Hammond obviously fighting in the IMAFs, doing very well there. And I fought Sam Slater, an SPG guy as well. So pretty good record there for Eric Nolan. So Jack Maguire we'll get to next. One of the Cork lads as well, 11-4 record. His brothers, and there's a couple of brothers there, I believe, with him as well, fighting out of Pedro Beza Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Cork. His amateur record, obviously this is his pro debut. Fought the likes of Kieran Breslin, Alexander O'Sullivan, Pietro Hughes. You can see all of the guys he fought there. Nathan Kelly, who's had a lot of fights, into that fight at 9-3. Stephen O'Driscoll, Kieran Clark, and you can see loads more of them there. So his opponent on the night, Manny Akpan. We'll have a look at him now. 6-3 amateur record, fighting out of SPG, living in England. Obviously his amateur record, Ash Waters he fought, Aidan James, who we know, we've seen around. I believe he's fought in Cage Warriors a couple of times. So he's had a good bit of experience there, and the record of the guys he has fought at amateur, 5-1-1, 5-2, 10-3, so all pretty experienced guys there in that one. And that fight obviously at 145 pounds. The next fight, Cathal Manning versus Ismar Balaji at 185 pounds. So we look at Ismar first. He is 0-1 in his pro career. He fights out of Frontline Muay Thai. His only pro fight was against Andreas Gustafsson Berg at Cage Warriors 103. He lost via shoulder lock in round 1. And he went on a really good streak as an amateur. As you can see there, how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins as an amateur. So that's a pretty good record there. So Cathal Manning, we look at him 0-1 as well in his pro career, fighting out of Point Blank BJJ. I was actually just talking to Andrew McGann before, and he was telling me he's from Galway. A lot of these guys are doing a lot of sambo and a lot of grappling and things as well. So that's pretty good. Loss to Kyle McClurkin at Cage Conflict 1 in his pro debut. He fought the likes of Trevor McCango, who's a very good guy, and beat him at amateur in 2017. So that's that's a pretty good win at amateur there. And we'll go back and we'll look at the card again here. So the next one is, we went through that fight, 155. Decky McLean, as I said, his opponent hasn't been announced yet because I believe Jared Southwell actually fell out of that fight. But we'll take a look at Decky McLean and fighting at 155 here, and hopefully that fight will remain on the card. He's 5-3 as a pro. As I was saying, I was talking to Andrew McGahan. He trains out of Team Torres, Andrew McGahan's gym above in Dundalk. He's 2 losses in a row right now. Having lost to Tom Mearns and Steve Amiable in 2, especially this one, a close fight, split decision there. Before that, he beat the likes of Adam Gustab, who we've seen an awful lot, Julian Boteau, Cage Legacy 8, fought at Akume, Cage Legacy a couple of times, beat Alex Davidson, and lost to James Gallagher in his pro debut at Chaos 15 back in 2015. So some good record, some good guys in his record there, and his amateur career as well. You can see he had some good wins there. So yeah, looking forward to seeing Decky back. Always exciting to watch Decky. The next fight then, we have Kieran Mulholland. We'll get into him. 10-11 as an amateur, so lots of experience there. Fighting out of Belfast Martial Arts. He's obviously his pro debut coming up against Nathan Fletcher. Lost his last few there, but has a good win over Mickey Pereira, who entered as 5-5, an experienced guy who we've seen around an awful lot, and has lots of other wins there. Dylan O'Donovan, who we've seen around before as well. So some wins there for Kieran Mulholland. And then we'll have a look at Nathan Fletcher, who's 1-0 in his career right now, fighting out of Next Generation MMA in Liverpool. So obviously that's Paddy Pimlett's team, I believe. So a pretty good team there in that one. He beat Rico Biggs, who was 4-0 in his pro debut. So that's a pretty good win at Cage Warriors 105. Fought the likes of Kenan Loughran, who was 6-1, an amateur. So that's a pretty good win for him there when he beat him. And you can see the other guys there as well. So the next fight we're going to get into here is Paul Lawrence versus Thomas Wachnik at 170 pounds. Obviously, the last fight there is at 135 pounds. So we'll get into Tomas first. He's 3-2 in his career. Obviously, a Polish guy, as we see by the flag there, fighting out of Impact MMA Fitness. He, in his last few fights, he lost to Mark Kinsella, Ireland's own Mark Kinsella, Cage Warriors 101. Beat the likes of Ant James, who was 2-9, Mark Glover 7-3-1. So that's a pretty good record there. And lost to Tim Barnett in his debut. Never an easy fight, Tim Barnett, for anyone. Has a win over Mick Stanton at amateur. So he will be fighting Paul Lawrence, who we will look at here. 4-1 in his pro career, so pretty good win. One of the best records on the card. Fighting out of Rush Fight Academy, one of the top schools in Ireland. A lot of fighters from Rush in amateur and coming into pro as well now in Ireland. Beat Konrad Owanowski, who entered the fight in 5-1, a very good fighter. Beat Michael Reed as well. Lost there a couple of fights, or lost one fight anyway at least. As an amateur as well, he went 5-1 there. Beat Kiefer Crosby, Keith McCabe. So that's 2 very good wins there as an amateur. So don't sleep on Paul Lawrence. 4-1 record, could go to 5-1 here. So he's definitely one of the top prospects coming through here in Irish MMA with by looking at his record anyway. So let's get to the last couple of fights here. So I'll leave the Ian Gary Matthews Figlak fight for a second, and I'll go to the Joe McColgan fight, which isn't on Tapology yet. So Joe McColgan, 2-5-1. They call him the SPG Hunter here, but I believe he's Fat Joe now, thanks to Niall McGrath, fighting out of Fight Academy Ireland up in Northern Ireland. He is his last fight was a draw against Mehdi Bin Lakhdar, one of the fights of the year, an absolute war of a fight. Fought Aldo Cirillo before that, who was 5-4. Mehdi Bin Lakhdar obviously 4-0, so a very good win there. Lost to Jai Herbert before that in another fun fight, and we know Jai Herbert's one of the best guys on the scene at the moment. Beat Sean Carter, very experienced guy, 12-5 before that. Beat Richard Williams 4-0 when he was 2-1. Has a win over Peter Coelho as well, which is a fantastic win, and a win over Tom Hogan, who was one of the top amateurs in Ireland at that point as well. So they both met in their MMA debut, and he had a few fights there as well as an amateur. So a big fight here for Joe McColgan. Let's just look at his wins. 3 wins by submission, 2 by decision, and his losses have come 1 KO and 1 decision. So yeah, big fight here for Joe McColgan, obviously, and his opponent will be Robbie Scott. And I've had a little bit of a look at Robbie Scott's record, so this is an interesting one. So he's 5-1, Robbie Scott. He's fighting out of Art of Fight Academy, fighting out of Kuwait City. So that's not something we see every day. So look at this record, 5-1. Right, let's look at the records of his opponents. This opponent, 0-0-0. This opponent 0-0-0. We'll skip that one for a second. This opponent 0-0-0. This opponent 0-0-0, and this opponent no record, but I presume 0-0-0 as well. And he won all of those. So the one fight he lost was to Abdullah Boushehri, which was 0-2. The only guy he's fought with a fight and lost both fights has beaten him via punches, round 1, 147. So not the best record in the world. I looked up a bit of footage of him, couldn't really find much, to be honest. So that's not the best record in the world, to be honest. It's 5-1, but who has he fought to get 5-1? There doesn't seem to be much on him there, but he's won one by punches, one by RNC, lost the one by punches, won another by RNC, another by ground and pound there. So you'd have to favour Joe McCauley in that one. We've seen him, around for a long time. So right, we've got to the main event. So let's get to Ian Garry versus Matthews Figlak here. So let's look at Figlak first. 2-0 as a pro, just like Ian Garry. That's a nice picture there he has. Fighting out of RUK in Poland. His 2 fights have been against a guy who's 7-30, so lots of experience there, maybe if not the best record, and 0-7, who's a bit of experience as well, but not the best record. But as an amateur, fought a guy who was 4-0, Josh Hudson, 2-0, 3-0, 5-1, and 0-0. So a very, very good and respectable amateur record there. His 2 fights as a pro, one by guillotine choke, one by ground and pound. So a very, very good record there, even though he hasn't fought, obviously, the best guys in the world there. So we'll head on over now for the last one here to Ian Garry, obviously at 170 pounds. He's 2-0 also. In his 2 fights so far, he's fought Matteo Cliglia, who entered it as 4-0. He won via question mark kick and flying knee in the first minute of round 2 in that one. He had 2 fights, obviously, fall out there as well. And then in his pro debut, he fought James Sheehan, who was 1-1, a very, very good fight where he broke his hand early. As an amateur, he had a smashing career. Won 6-1 as an amateur, beating Ty Glahan again, who we mentioned there earlier, Stephen Cunningham, Josh Smoot, who was 3-0, and Poor here, who was 2-0. So a pretty good record for Ian Garry as well, starting off. Fighting out of Team KF, obviously I should have mentioned that, in Dublin, Chris Fields and Tom King's gym. So he's won 6 in a row, obviously, with the 4 at amateur and the 4 at pro. So yeah, that's the full card. Obviously the Reese McKee fight, we'll just go through them quickly again. Reese McKee, Hakan Fost, fought at 170, 3 5-minute rounds. You can see the records there. Hakan Fost 9-7, Reese McKee 9-2-1. As I mentioned, Garry versus Figlak, 2-0 versus 2-0 at 170. Paul Lawrence versus Thomas Wachnik, 4-1 versus 3-2, fought at 170 as well. Kieran Mulholland, Nathan Fletcher, 0-0 versus 1-0, fought at 135. Decky McAleenan's fight, will it be at 155? You'd hope if he can get a replacement for Jarvis Howell, who believes not on the card. He's 5-3. Ismar Balogi, 0-1 versus Cotton Manning, 0-1 at 185. Manny Akpan at 145 pounds versus Jack Maguire, both making their pro debuts. And Eric Nolan at 155 pounds, 1-1, fighting John Mitchell, who is 0-0. And that's it. So an interesting card coming up this weekend, especially I think the top 2 fights. A lot of people like Ian Garry coming through, think he's one of the top prospects in Ireland. Joe McCauley, a fantastic fighter. The top 3, maybe I said top 2 there. Joe McCauley, a fantastic fighter as well. And even you could throw Paul Lawrence in there as well. And we have, obviously, the main event is Reese McKee versus Hakan Fost. So overall, looking forward to getting down to Cork on Saturday night, seeing this whole Cage Warriors card, seeing how it goes down and meeting you all there. Hopefully you'll be there. So if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to Severe Art on YouTube, give me a follow at Sean Sheehan BA, follow at SevereMMA Pod and at SevereMMA as well, and enjoy the fights this weekend. See you next time.